Hey, YouTube, welcome back to Axes and Allies, the Garrison. Here we are with our Gargantua and, of course, myself, Detroit. Okay, so very excited because we have a special announcement to make. We're very happy that we have Gargantua here today. And the thing is, we're starting a new segment to the Garrison channel, and it's a segment called Decoding Axes and Allies. It is our intent in this new segment to be able to talk about strategy, tactics, okay, and subjects involving not only gameplay, but also the community as well. We're hoping to be able to have or be able to secure interviews with the likes of Larry Harris, okay, Doug from HBG, okay, as well as Young Grasshopper and Sired Blood. And with any luck, many more additional future individuals that we can interview in this series that we're so excited about. So, of course, my teammate and co-host here, Gargantua, is known to many of us already in the community. He happens to be the 2017 Young Grasshopper Invitational Champion. He is also the 2019 Bloodbath Champion. And of course, he's not only a great guy, but he also happens to be a great Axis and Allies player. He's well versed on all the variants, or at least on most of the variants that I'm aware of, anyways, in the Axis and Allies community, the Axis and Allies world. So, Gargantua, what is it about this game that we all have a passion for? Here you have grown men, okay, playing with little toy soldiers on a game table, okay, that's so much brings out the passion in us, that so brings that child in us. Okay, what is it about this game, in your opinion, that just gets our juices flowing?
Well, for me, I think one of the things we all have in common is there tends to be a keen interest in history, in politics, in sort of military strategy in general, and it's just like it's a cultural thing where people just really enjoy it. And they like it, and they like to sort of study the factors and the tools and the equipment, and Axis and Allies is a place where all that stuff is where the rubber hits the road, and you get what you want out of it without anybody getting hurt. So, and you get to be part of those key decisions, and then of course you get exposed to the strategic logistics of managing a country or an empire, and you get to plant your flag where you go, and you get to battle someone else's mind all day, or sometimes more than one. And I think those are the components that really what band everyone together, is sort of that politics, history, and strategy. Like, you like board games and you like to be competitive, and that's really what drags everyone together, I think.
Okay, what exposed you initially to the game? When, as far as you can recall, when did you start playing? Who introduced you to the game, or was it just mere luck?
Yeah, so just people I knew, like my brothers played. I didn't get started with them though, but a few times I've been invited, and I was not really my thing. I don't know anything about it. But then when I think I was 16, a friend of mine got the game. I was like, hey, let's play this thing. So we pulled the box, and 5 of us got together. We set up the board. It took us like 2 hours first time. And then I was like, I'm going to be America, because, America's going to be number one, right? So then we played, and I remember my first die roll. At our time, our understanding was you could roll for tech, and for every 6 that you rolled, you'd get a technology. At least that was our understanding of the rules, whether it was or wasn't at the time. So I spent $15 on tech with America. I got 3 techs first turn of the game, 666. I was like, woo, I like this game. I'm going to play some more. And ever since then, I've been hooked. So.
Got it. As far as from my own personal experience, I remember I was also introduced to the game. I think I was like around 16, and I was 16 years old. I remember, I think it was my sophomore year in high school, and I was introduced to the game by a buddy of mine, a high school friend of mine by the name of Peter Marble. And Peter, I remember, I don't know if I think he actually brought the game to school, if I'm not mistaken. And he just opened that box up, and I saw all these hundreds of game pieces that just awesome. Just blew me away. And to be honest, since I've been a little kid, I remember playing with little toy soldiers. Okay, whether it be die rolls, throwing rubber bands, whatnot. I always found a way to resolve combat. And of course, I looked at this game, and you know what? I never looked back. You know,
Yeah,
so
totally agree.
I think we'll have a similar story to tell as far as how we were first impacted by this game, right? So
Yeah.
now, obviously, I already mentioned that you are a good player. Okay, there's no secret to that. You're well known in the community. Okay, so having said that, how do you prepare for an event or for a game that really just gets your attention when you're gonna say, I gotta beat that guy. That guy's really good, or I'm gonna be participating at the bloodbath. I gotta kick some rear end somewhere. So how
Yeah.
do you prepare? What
Well,
goes?
there's nothing
What
like
goes in your mind?
preparing for a game by having a game. That's
Having a
usually the first order, but is you got to have a game. Second thing is usually it depends on the seriousness, right? Like if it's just like a casual whatever, like I don't, there's no need to prepare. But if you're like, okay, I'm gonna get on a plane, I'm gonna go down to bloodbath, I'm gonna win day 1, 2, and then I'm gonna kill it day 3. There's a different level that you got to step up to. So usually, and I'll let my secret out. We're gonna play like a typical global game or balance mod or any of anniversary and those ones. I'll go online to accessandallies.org. I'll look at the league and I'll look at who are some of the top players, and I'll go and look at some of their games. And I'll do a debrief on like what kinds of things these guys buy, what kind of strategies they employ. And granted, like a lot of guys have different play styles, so you've got to keep that in mind. Like a lot of players are not like I'm quite pro risk, and lots of people aren't. But generally, I like to debrief like how have other people won, what kinds of things they do, and you'll review, I don't know, 15, 20 games in an evening, just like looking at different save files. AAA is really good for that because you can download a save file and look at the whole history. And that's usually trick 1. Bloodbath is a bit different because the only way to review it is to watch YouTube basically, or play it with other people. And so my trick there was I worked a lot with G.I. Joe because he understood the rules, he understood the game, but wasn't as versed in terms of he didn't have like 1,000 games Axis and Allies in general under his belt. So I was like, look, I can help you do the tactics and figure it out, but you got to keep me appraised of the I don't know 208 different rules that make that game different, right? So I relied on G.I. Joe for the rules knowledge to make sure that I was like, okay, I'm not going to miss something small here. And then I used all my sort of tactical knowledge to make sure that we won the game. But yeah, it was lots of YouTube and lots of do your homework. That's
Right.
it.
Oh, so you actually prepare by studying your opponents, which of course know thy enemy, right?
Yep.
Or in this instance, know thy
Yep.
enemy. No, know thy opponent.
Correct. Yeah.
So okay, so now in our previous conversations that we've had, you mentioned something about how the community is actually made up of different communities or different islands where you have people that gravitate towards, let's say, accessandallies.org, right?
Yeah.
Or people that gravitate towards HBG 36 and
Yeah.
39, I believe.
Yeah.
You have the guys who are just strictly speaking out of box, and then you have the most recent variant, which I believe is the BBR that I'm aware of. Okay, so we all tend to isolate ourselves, and it's one of my objectives, or hopefully one of our objectives that I pointed out to you before, is to be able to connect the dots between all these island groups and hopefully get all the communities together so that we could expand this game even further, because it is already a niche game within the world of game boards. So if we could somehow start working at building a greater community, I think that will make the game even better. I think.
And that's a big part of why I wanted to be part of this, because you're 100% right. There are these islands of great people, great Axis and Allies players, and they have their preference in their way, and there's so many flavors and mediums to take this game in. But you're right, like there's no universal driving force or universal location. I used to think that was accessandallies.org until you really spend some time, and there's even other Axis and Allies websites out there that are similar that have communities, and they're small to medium in size, and we don't talk. Like we used to play on accessandallies.org, and then the people who'd play at the Gen Con tournaments thought that, oh, these guys they all suck, they don't know anything. And it's like, okay, well, you guys play 3 games a year, we play some of our players 300. So and we had some good battles that way, and the nature of the games being different too. The Gen Con format being like similar to BBR, where there's a turn limit, so 8 turns and you're kind of done, turns it into a much more of a tactical game than some of these games online, which could go 40, 50, 60 turns. which is very, very different, right? And so then you just have these real different clusters. Like even today, I was explaining earlier, the Axis and Allies 42 season for the online game by Beamdog just renewed. So it's season 4. And a bunch of guys won that season 3 who none of us have ever heard of. So I want to find out who they are. I don't want to play them. And yeah, it's only the 42 version, but that's a great version of the game. Let's connect the dots as a community so that we can have bigger events. That's yeah.
Agreed. Now this leads me to a question that it just popped up to me, but I thought we talked about it in the past as well. Okay, if you happen to be a good player online on a video game format on the computer, like accessandallies.org, right? I think that's the website.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that translate to that individual being a good player on a tabletop format where you're playing with individuals around you, whether it be an out-of-box game or a BBR game? Does that translate to, are you necessarily a good player on both accessandallies.org as well as on a tabletop format?
No, I mean, and Axis and Allies, it's yes and no, but accessandallies.org is a great place to play, and you're going to get lots of talent there. So there's some people who come and they're able to grow, and they'll start at the beginning and play some players in the same area, and before you know it, they're fighting for the league championship 2 years later. So it's definitely a great place for growth. There's other players who come and they don't improve, and they stay the same, and they're able to do what they do. In general, anybody who plays online, because you're able to play more games at once, so you're playing games consistently, you're playing more games, so you get better at the game. But just because you're an online player doesn't mean that you're better. And sometimes I've played players who online are very dangerous people to play against, very difficult to beat. But when you play them in person, this is going to sound funny, but the game is too fast. And they like to rely on their battle calculators, and they'll open multiple iterations of the game, and they'll spend 6, 7, 8 hours planning their move, and then get their move perfect, and then post it. Versus in live play, you've got maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then you've got to go.
There's also sorry to interrupt, but I think there's also the element of psychology, okay,
Absolutely.
And how sometimes when you're playing with somebody like a game of poker or any game. Okay, your body language, how that transmits, your level of confidence, the other person is saying, are they playing with your mind? I mean, there's a lot of tricks that can be used on a tabletop game that could, a lot of tricks that you use that cannot be used on a computer format.
Oh, 100%. Well, like a good friend of mine, he's often my partner in many games. As long as I get him talking politics, right? And I'll throw something controversial out there, and he gets all flustered and he wants to jibber jabber about it, and then he'll lose the game, right? So that's one of my favorite. You're 100% right. There's definitely psychology when you're in person, and sometimes too there's even the fatigue. Like guys come and they're drinking Coca-Cola or they're drinking beer, and 8 hours later they're paying for it. So when you talked about prep earlier, it's bananas and water, man. Like that's it's the way to win, right? And then people want to hang out at night, and it's like, I love you guys. I'll hang out on Monday night when the tournament's won, but not till then.
It's funny because here at the Garrison, I'm okay with guys bringing over alcohol, and I'll join them here and there. And I tell you what, I have yet to experience any negative gameplay because guys coming over or like anybody getting nasty or anything like that. Thank God it's all been kosher on our end.
Yeah.
But you can see a turn of, there's a turning when somebody's drinking alcohol, and slowly somewhere between round 3 and 4, you start seeing their performance drop. Ironically enough, their level of confidence increases. So it's
yeah, but sometimes so do their dice rolls, and then you're like, oh my goodness, like they've got it with it, right? So.
All right. So